Okay, we are now live. It is 8 o'clock on April 20th. So hello everyone, this is Chuck Gross here and happy Wednesday. It's Q&A time, so let's get right to it. So if you're new to the Q&A Hangouts, there is a sidebar correctly called Q&A that I've turned on. You'll have to look at it on the right-hand side. Please be aware there is a slight delay between when you ask the question and when I can actually see it. So please don't wait till the very end to ask your question. If by chance you missed the window to ask questions, no problem. I'll be happy to answer your question in any other format, or we can save it for next time. So just be aware that it is turned on, and I will check it after I get through the questions that have already been asked. That'll be the last thing we do. So there have been some questions that have already been asked, and let's get to them. So question number 1, is your beard the source of your power? All right, so thank you, Sean, for asking that. I've actually been waiting for someone to ask me that question for a long time, so I'm very glad that you did, Sean. That is a great question. Yes, it's true. The beard is the source of my power. One of the habits that I think is super important for long-term weight loss and maintaining that weight loss is a personal fitness manifesto. Those of you that are just starting to go through the weight loss habits that I teach, we'll get to that one. Those of you that have already gone through those habits and you don't recall, it might be time for a review, because that's kind of one that keeps me going. So, as I hope you know by now, I would never ask you to do anything that I haven't done myself or tried on myself first. So in my own fitness manifesto, I've written to my future self that I'm not going to shave my beard anymore because it is the source of my power. And I say that because looking back objectively for the past 8 years, the most progress that I've had and the least amount of regression in my progress, because that's a normal part of the process. It's not all straight line, it's ups and downs. So the times that I did shave during those 8 years from now until when I started, my regressions mostly happened when I didn't have a beard. And I did shave for a specific reason. My daughter was a little bit older, to the point where she was still a baby, but pulling on my beard and trying to pull herself up on it, and it was painful. So I shaved it off, and I kind of kept it shaved off. But once my son had been born and there were no more little babies pulling on my face, the beard is back, and I've never been seeing greater progress since then. I don't think that's a coincidence. So as you can see, the beard is in full effect here, going strong. It's about 2 years now since I've shaved this bottom part. I've trimmed it and things like that, but I'm gonna keep going, see how far it goes. So the answer is yes, the beard is power. The shaved head does also help during the summer, as it acts as a solar panel and allows me to get vitamin D directly into my bloodstream. However, I don't know if you can tell, sometimes the lighting's a little bit off, is that I am sunburned already and it's only April. So such is life of having a shaved head. Anyways, that question was asked in all fun, and please do ask questions that are fun like that. I love answering them, but at the same time, there is a kind of a serious answer for that, and that's the fitness manifesto. So again, if you're just starting into the fitness habits of weight loss, you'll get to there. It's coming soon. If you've already gone through them with me before and you need a refresher, please contact me and we'll go through them. All right. So the next question. Our next question comes from Polly. And so Polly has signed up for a bike ride for charity. And the bike ride is 42 miles in a single day. And she was wondering how she should train for that event and how that training is going to change her calorie goals, if at all, since her goal is weight loss. So first of all, Polly, I think it's great that you've signed up for an event like that. Number one, being that it's for a good cause, but also I think it's incredibly motivating to have something in the future that you're looking forward to, and as a goal that's not related to the scale. A competition of some sort can kind of really kick you in the butt when you need motivation. Motivation is something that's waning. It's not constant. It has to be refreshed. But having that goal and it being for a good cause is an amazing thing. So that's awesome. If you're watching this or listening to this, I'd recommend you do something similar. Sign up for something to compete. If you need some help with that, let me know. I obviously don't recommend you go from I'm just sitting on the couch to doing a Tough Mudder in 2 months. there are some things you could do that would be maybe a little bit more appropriate so you don't get hurt, but it is a good thing. So with that said, in this specific scenario of being in a competition or an event that's really long bike ride, 42 miles is a lot. You don't really want to worry about your calories during the event itself or that day. It's not worth worrying about. You're going to be over on your calorie goals, and that's perfectly okay, and you should be. I don't want you to even track any meals you have during the ride or after as part of your recovery, and that should be part of your plan. It shouldn't represent a failure. It should be literally part of your plan. Like, okay, maybe I'll track breakfast and lunch or whatever, depending on what time it is. But anything I eat during the race to fuel me and anything afterwards, it's not a cheat meal. It's literally I'm recovering from this race and fueling my body. And don't look at it as anything else. It's not an excuse to just eat 20 boxes of donuts, but at the same time, there's no you don't need to try to lose weight every single day. Don't worry at all. It's one event, and you're eating to support that event, and it's not going to affect your goals in the long term, and it's not worth worrying about whatsoever. So nutrition during the bike ride, it's going to be important too, and that means being hydrated, having the electrolytes you need. Electrolytes are salt, potassium, magnesium. When your electrolytes are low or out of whack, you're going to get cramps. You're going to feel bad. So something like fruit, granola bars, energy bars, whatever, during the event will be a good idea. And then you'd want a nice recovery meal afterwards. If you're a beer drinker, I would recommend having a nice beer afterwards, a craft beer. So hit me up if you need recommendations for that. I'm a stout man myself, if you couldn't have guessed, but I do like Belgian ales. So I'll be able to give you a recommendation there. So one thing is, regardless of what you do that day, you're going to want to be aware that the scale is likely to jump up afterwards. Riding 42 miles on a bike is a stress on your body. It's a huge stress. Because of that, you're going to retain water no matter what you do. You could be at your calorie goal, and you'd probably have a jump on the scale because your body is stressed out from a 42-mile bike ride, and you're going to retain water as part of the recovery process. Don't fret it. Just go back to your normal habits the next day, and it'll gradually disappear or rapidly disappear depending on you specifically. So again, keep that in mind. It's part of the recovery process. You didn't do anything wrong. The scale will likely jump up afterwards. So as part of training leading up to the event, Polly said that she's going to be doing probably a longer bike ride once a week. So the question here is, so what do I do those days? Do I eat more calories to compensate for that? So as you may know or may not know, I'm not a fan of eating back your calories when your goal is weight loss. However, if your activity level is so high to the point that you're starving and you're not getting enough calories to recover from the exercise, then you may want to eat some calories back, specifically because you're training for an event that is not the type of training that I'd recommend specifically for fat loss. Meaning, if you weren't coming up and saying, hey, I have a bike ride event that I want to do, it's 42 miles, the type of training you would do to get to that point would not be something I'd recommend for fat loss. So just to give you a personal experience, I've had days where I've gone on like an 8 or 10 mile hike, and I've maybe eaten 200 or 300 calories over my goal, which still put me in a calorie deficit regardless of the exercise that I got. And if you look at something like MyFitnessPal, where they do try to add the exercise calories back in, it was telling me that I'd earned the right to eat 4,300 calories. And no, thank you. I know my body well enough at this point that's not accurate whatsoever. And that's cross purposes to my goal. I didn't go hiking to eat extra food. I went hiking because it's nature and it's enjoyable and it's a nice way to decompress and kind of shut off technology for a while and just get out there and live life. It wasn't a way to burn calories. So I wasn't training for an event, but at the same time, you can't really, if you have a strong connection between to activity, to burn calories, to eat, I don't find that a healthy and sustainable way to manage your weight at all. So those calculators that tell you, oh, you did this activity and you burned these many calories, they're all way off. Some of them are going to be different degrees of being wrong, but they're all wrong. Just one way to look at it. So with that said, Polly and I will be discussing how she feels after those once a week long training rides. And the goal here will be to ensure that she's getting adequate protein and enough carbs to recover from them without overshooting her calorie goals and still moving her process forward. The goal here is, keep her from being injured, keep her being healthy, and keep her weight loss chugging along And then to reiterate, the day of the event is not something we'd look at as long as she's staying hydrated and getting enough protein, fats, and carbs day of to recover, and a beer. So, all right. Following up to that is a question also from Polly, and Polly says that she heard that the average weight loss per week is 1 pound per week, and she had lost 5 pounds this week. But disclaimer, this is Polly's first week, and she's wondering if she should be concerned with such a huge drop. She asks, is that healthy? Is it just because that there was a shock to her system with a bunch of changes all at once? So that is a great question. You're not alone in seeing a huge drop the first week on the scale, as you start to make a bunch of changes at once. Looking at, as you asked this question, I went back and looked at my own weigh-ins, because I have weigh-ins going back 8 years, at least once a week weigh-ins. Some years or weeks are even more than one weigh-in a week. So I have them all there. I went back and looked. When I got started the first week, I dropped 7 pounds in 4 days, and then 5 pounds after that. So that's 9 pounds in a little over a week. So that rate of weight loss is rarely going to continue unless you are super, super morbidly obese, which I don't think anyone that I'm currently working with fits that category. But if that does, fit your situation and you're watching and you need some help with that, let me know. So the average healthy weight loss per week really depends on quite a few things, and including how much you actually have to lose to be at a sustainable body weight, like healthy BMI. I think a better way to look at it would be something like 1 pound per week per 25, 50 pounds total to lose. So if you only have 25 or 50 pounds at the most to lose, 1 pound is a good pace. If you have more than 50 pounds, you're starting to look at 2 pounds as a good sustainable pace. And if you're starting to get into 100 pounds or more to lose, 3 or 4 pounds a week is something that should be considered sustainable pace. But like I mentioned earlier, that rate of weight loss that you're seeing in your first week is unlikely to continue. In general, and I'm saying this to prepare you, most people will see smaller losses significantly on their second week. In fact, it's actually common to see a weight gain in the second week. It may not be gaining back everything you lost in the first week, but your body is adjusting to the changes and it's trying to find equilibrium, and it's struggling to do that. The losses from the first week are likely going to be water weight that's being pushed out. And so this is why if you are making all these changes like eating more protein comes at the cost of taking the calories from somewhere else. And it's a portion of that's going to be carbs, which as a result forces you to flush water out of your body. One of the changes we make in the first week is increasing your water intake. Changing your water intake causes you to push water out of your body. So all of these things are why the scale drops really fast and why you're probably peeing more than you ever have in your life. And that's normal. And those things, as you find that equilibrium, those things will even out and you won't be peeing every 5 minutes anymore. If your weight loss is a really high rate, multiple weeks in a row, and you're not a candidate for needing to, being safe in a range of 3 to 4 pounds per week, I would very likely adjust your calorie goals upwards to eat more. Progress happens right at the edge of your comfort zone, right over the edge. You can't really see too much progress in your comfort zone, so we're going to need to step over that edge a little bit. But my intention is, as you lose weight, you should be losing weight while eating as much as you like, or as much as possible to still sustain weight loss, and eating as much as possible to do that. So I'll keep an eye on I do keep an eye on everyone's changes week to week, and if I notice gigantic drops too many weeks in a row, we'll look at, are you eating enough? Are you getting close to the goal that I've set for you? And if you are, we need to up it. And then also consider, are you getting any activity extra that you weren't getting before that you haven't told me about? And we'll go from there. Alrighty. The next question comes from Brandon. And Brandon says that sometimes when he is doing squats or even just moving around in general, he hears popping sounds coming from his knees or elbows, and that there's nothing that hurts. It's awkward, weird, creepy. He's not sure what to make of it. So Brandon wants to know, like, what is the cause of this popping sound or noise? So that's a great question. I have some snap, crackle, and pop going on myself, mostly in my well, everywhere, knees, shoulders, wrists, elbows. But the fact that it doesn't hurt you is a sign that generally everything's probably okay and you don't need to worry, and that this is entirely normal. See if I can, it's not popping because I just worked out. Normally if I go like this on my shoulder, it kind of sounds like a gunshot basically. But yeah, so if you have pain that goes along with the popping, you should see a doctor immediately. That's not normal. But a little bit of popping here and there, knuckles, wrists, elbows, knees, that's perfectly fine as long as there's no pain. So what causes that? And it's the exact same thing is happening from your knuckles cracking. There's two different reasons it could happen. First reason is that there's fluid around your joints that it's like a lubricant for your joints to move, and there are bubbles of gas in there. And when those bubbles form and you kind of move the joint in a way rapidly, the bubbles pop. And so what you're hearing is those bubbles popping. And so if you notice after you kind of pop everything, they stop popping for a while, it's because you've popped all the bubbles, and then it will reform over time. So that's what that sound is. The second reason is that it's something else. It's not the bubbles popping, but there's some type of inflammation in the joint or the muscle that can kind of build up from inactivity. So basically moving the areas that are popping frequently and stretching can kind of help decrease that if the cause is that buildup and not just gas bubbles in the joints. Unfortunately, I looked, I didn't see, I'm not aware of any way to be able to tell the difference. But it's not like moving around frequently and kind of stretching out would be a bad thing anyways. It just, you consider it just mobility work and just get some movement in around what's been popping constantly and see if it improves. Because like I said, I worked out today. Normally, if I hadn't worked out today and been typing, since 5:30 a.m., at this point, if I were to move my shoulders or wrists or elbows around, it would sound like firecrackers. But I worked out and I don't have that problem after it. During the workout there was some popping going on, but now that I've stretched out and worked out, the popping's gone, and nothing is really bringing it back right now. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, and our final pre-asked question, and then I'll switch over to the Q&A portion, is from Polly. And Polly was wondering about weightlifting, and she mentions that in looking at the program that I've written for her, the goal is to lift heavier weights and fewer reps than what she'd seen, and that someone had told Polly that women should lift lighter weights with more reps. And Polly wants to know, is there a reason why I don't have women do that? And she wants to know, will lifting big weights encourage muscles to get big? So Polly, I'm glad you asked this. There's this notion that women should only lift lighter weights with more reps to avoid getting bulky. It's a huge myth. It's a huge fitness myth. And it's probably one of those ones that was, created as like a buzz marketing term from a women's magazine. And there are some female trainers out there that kind of perpetuate this myth, and their entire process, I'm not going to name names, is based around that premise. And this, unfortunately, the science just doesn't support that. The good news is that lifting big weights will not automatically make your muscles get big. There is a subjective component based on what you actually yourself think bulky is. It's going to differ person to person. The truth, though, is you're not going to get big muscles usually in a calorie deficit, regardless. I mean, most men don't get big muscles in a calorie deficit. If you're thinking like female bodybuilding big, most of those bodybuilders have been lifting for decades at this point, and there's a lot of drugs going into that where women are having testosterone levels that are higher than men naturally have, where you would never ever get there without that level of supplementation that's also illegal. Because of this, even if you're in a calorie surplus, as a woman, your muscles are not going to be like that. Just doesn't work that way as a function of your biology and your natural hormones. So That's never going to happen unless you take steroids, and specifically testosterone and steroids that, basically give you the same hormone output as a man. And like I said, you'd have to have lots and lots of years and almost decades behind you of weightlifting experience consistently, and you basically have to plan your life around it to get to that point. So ironically, if I wanted to get bigger muscles instead of just getting stronger, I would lift lighter weights and do more reps. So like I said, it's kind of a weird myth, because the way you get bigger muscles is to do more volume, meaning more sets, more reps, more variety, more sessions per week. And the way you do that without burning out and getting injured is lowering the weight. So the very thing that the myth is about is what actually gets you bigger muscle sizes when you're eating in a calorie surplus. So it's weird that that's the myth, but I understand that it is. So like I said, if I wanted to get bigger, I would lift lighter weights to allow me to lift more frequently, more volume, more sets, more reps, shorter rest times. Most men are lucky to get big and bulky, and it doesn't happen by accident. With that said, we focus on strength for a few reasons. The first is we want to ensure that when we lose weight, that weight is all fat or mostly fat and not muscle. Muscle uses more calories than fat in your body to keep it around. So the more muscle we retain, the faster our metabolisms. Now, it's not like some gigantic number that you're going to be by having more muscle, you're going to eat like thousands more calories. It's like 1 pound of muscle, which is a lot of muscle, is like 12 more calories a day or something. Personally, to me, that adds up over time, and that matters. You could do a lot with a couple pounds of muscles worth of calories in a day, especially if you're creative. So plus, retaining muscle also changes our body composition. So meaning we look differently at a given weight as opposed to someone else who's the same weight. The bodies just look different. And again, beauty is like kind of in the eye of the beholder. It's subjective. So one person may prefer one way themselves or another way. That's fine. So for example, if you take two twins that weigh the exact same, they have the same body composition, same amount of muscle, same amount of fat. They're identical twins in everything. And you basically had them lose weight, and they lost the exact same amount of weight, but one of them lifted weights heavy the entire time they did so, and the other one did not. I guarantee you that every single person, for the most part, would think that the person that lifted weights was actually a lighter weight than the one that wasn't, because they would have retained more muscle during their weight loss and would, subjectively look better as a result of that. So lastly, chasing after strength goals are something that you can generally see improvement on either day to day or week to week, and it gives you something else to focus on that's not the scale or the measurements. Not only that, that focus is positively oriented. With weight loss, we're looking at reducing the number on the scale and reducing the measurements, specifically usually the waist ones. But with weightlifting, the goal here is to make the numbers go up. And it's very satisfying to see those numbers go up. So that kind of renews your motivation and keeps you going. It's positively oriented. And that's what we talked about before, is it's important to have positively oriented goals. And I know from experience that it's difficult sometimes to have positively oriented goals around weight loss. And strength training allows us to kind of have one immediately. And it's easy to do that, because it's literally like, okay, well, you lifted this weight this time, go up 5 pounds and try it and see how you do. And it's not only that, it gives you a lot of confidence really quickly. And that's important, because confidence makes everything easier. So like I said, you focus on numbers going up, you have more confidence, you get stronger, which makes everything you do in life easier, and you feel good as a result of that. You burn more calories, which again, I don't want to connect exercise and calorie burn, but it's true. And you can improve on something every single time you do it, for the most part, as a beginner. With weight loss, even if you do every single thing right, it doesn't mean you're going to see a loss on the scale or measurements every single week, and that's just a fact. It sucks, It's the truth, though. There are times when you could eat perfectly. You could hit your macro targets and calorie targets 100% for 7 days in a row, and the scale goes up. And you didn't, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. That's just how the body works. You are looking at things, and I am looking at things on a day-to-day, on a week-to-week basis. The body doesn't care about that. It just does what it wants. It tries to find equilibrium. It's fighting you on the weight loss, and that's just a fact. Strength training, all things being equal, taking care of your sleep and recovering adequately, you get to focus on a few things, and for the most part, as a beginner, you can keep pushing those numbers up. And in my experience, my own experience, and working with other people, that positively motivates you to keep working out and keep getting stronger and building more confidence, which in turn makes weight loss itself and all the other aspects much, much easier. Alrighty. I believe that covers all of the pre-asked ones. We have a couple minutes here before the hangout's over. And let me see. All right, I'm not seeing any questions asked, and that's okay. Just give it one more moment here. All right, I'm not seeing any questions asked, so let's go ahead and call that a night. And then if you have a question that pops up in the meantime, let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer it for you. And until then, all right, everyone have a good night. Take care.